February the 27th. Just a quick reminder, the Missouri fishing license expires, I believe, the 29th or the 30th, whatever day, the last day of the month is. So if you haven't got your new license, it's something you might want to make sure you get done so you don't get caught out there fishing without a license. But lake level is about 915 3/4. It hadn't changed much since last week. I think it was like 916. Even with all the rain and water flow that we've had in the lake, they've been able to maintain a pretty steady lake level. The water temperature's been anywhere from 43 to 46 degrees, and fishing's been really good. I mean, they had that Anglers in Action tournament this past weekend. I think there was 140 boats, and if I'm not mistaken, I think 70th place was still 10 pounds, and it took 15 pounds to get a check. And I had mentioned last week that I thought there'd be several bags over 20. Well, I was wrong about that. There was only one bag over 20, but there was a lot more limits of fish than I thought would come in. And, the way my bite had been, and I've been catching real good quality, and we've been able to catch a limit pretty much every day, but we've been having to work at it. This weekend, it just seemed like it was the perfect weather conditions. We had probably 18, 20 keepers, and talking to a lot of other guys, it was unreal the numbers of keepers that everybody caught. We had a good south wind. It got up to almost 60 degrees, and that's what them fish are wanting. I mean, they're wanting to move up in there shallower and higher in the water column. And like I say, that was a perfect deal last weekend. I think we're going to have the same deal this coming weekend. Looks like it's going to be in the 60s Saturday, after a pretty cold week. And even with the cold days this week, we've still been out and still catching, awful good quality. And, excuse me, we've been catching fish on a little bit of everything. There's guys fishing dirt shallow. A lot of the fishing I've been doing, it's kind of typical for me this time of year. I fish a lot of structure, not necessarily deep water, but most of the points I'm fishing are near channel swings, and I'll be fishing in the creeks, out on the main lake. A lot of our fish this past weekend came on an Alabama rig, but our better fish came on a jerkbait. I think 4 of the 5 that we weighed all came on a jerkbait. Most of the Alabama rig fish we caught, we ended up calling out with the jerkbait. And the fishing kind of changing from day to day. One day you'll have Kentuckies in an area, and you go back out there, and next day there may be largemouths or vice versa. But the bite seems to be changing quite a bit depending on the weather. It seems like when that sun gets up, then fish will come up higher in the water column and get up in there a little shallower. On the cloudy days like today, we had to work a little bit harder, but the quality was just as good as it's been. And I probably caught, more quality fish these last 2 weeks on Table Rock than I did all last year. I mean, the fish are really looking good. They're real healthy. I don't know if it's because we've had so much water flush through the lake. Everything really seems to be in good shape, and they're just biting really good. I think it's going to be a really good spring. They got another big tournament coming up this weekend, which should have real good weights in it. But there's still fish out there deep. I mean, there's shad in the backs of the pockets. There's still shad out there in 50, 60 foot of water. But you can almost take whatever you've got the most confidence in or whatever you feel your strong suit is. Myself, I like to fish a jerkbait, so I'm fishing, a lot of secondary points, bluff ends. The places I'm fishing the Alabama rig, one day they'll be around brush piles. The next day they'll be suspended, over 40, 50 feet of water, but they'll be 15 to 20 foot deep. You just got to kind of mix it up, get a few bites. The good thing is whenever you get one bite, you usually get a couple bites in an area. There's been some fish being caught on jigs just inside a lot of the gravel points. A good jig to throw this time of year is a 5-fish lures. It's the ultimate finesse jig. I like to throw a 7/16. And if the water's pretty clear, I like this Magic Craw color. It's got a little bit of blue, which will imitate a little bit of bluegill. If you can see what color the crawdad pinches are, look in the fish's mouth when you catch one. If you're seeing a lot of orange, try a green pumpkin orange. And I like to use a pretty small trailer. I've got a Strike King baby rage craw on this bait here. But it seems like you got to fish, you know, no matter what I'm fishing, it seems like I have to fish it really slow and methodic. If you get a bite on a bank, whether it be on a jerkbait or an Alabama rig, it doesn't hurt to turn around and go back down that same bank with another bait. If your fish were suspended, you know, and if you were throwing an A-rig, maybe try the jerkbait. If your fish were close to the bottom on the Alabama rig, pick up a jig and crawl it. You know, definitely finding where there's one bite, there's several bites. And with all the rain that we've had, you know, the lake is in really good shape. There's very few areas that are trashed out with mud. We haven't had any real hard downpours, just, you know, steady rain. Most of the lake has got real good color. If you get up to James River and the White River, you know, Baxter, Campbell Point, Shell Knob's got real pretty green color to it. The Mid-James does. Some of the upper river arms have got a lot of shad dying. Now down lake, I've been fishing down there quite a bit from like Kimberling City, clear down to State Park. A lot of that water is gin clear. You know, you might have 12, 15 foot of visibility in places. I'm not seeing any sign of dying shad. And I don't really feel that one end of the lake is producing any better. It seems like I'm mixing it up. If I can't get bit on one end, I may run 10, 15 miles and try the same type of structure, but just on a different end of the lake. You know, the cloudy days seem to be a little tougher for me. I'm finding that if we get any kind of sunshine, that's helping bring the fish up a little bit higher in the water column. You can catch them on a crankbait. Some of the areas, if you try to crank, that green slime is getting on the rocks and around the trees real bad. So some areas, you won't be able to bounce that crankbait off the bottom without getting it slimed up. You'll find if you get in the dirtier water, the algae or whatever it is, the slime is not as bad as it is in the clearer water. So you just got to kind of mix it up. As far as the jerkbait colors, I'm kind of basing that on the color of the sky and the color of the water. You know, if it's a bluebird sunny day, I usually want something with some flash in it, with some chrome. Like blackback, maybe a little blue and chrome on the sides. If it's cloudy and the water's got some stain to it, like something with a little chartreuse, a little white in it. You know, a lot of the lake has got color like what normally Lake of the Ozarks would have. I think right now a lot of Lake of the Ozarks is muddy, but a lot of the color we have in our river arms is what I would call normal color for Lake of the Ozarks. You know, you got about 3 foot of visibility, nice green tint to it. Seems like if I get in that dirty water, like I say, especially with the sun, I like the blue for the flash, something with a little bit of chartreuse on the bottom, help the fish find the bait. I'm throwing a lot of different, I'm throwing Strike King jerk baits, mega bass and spros. I'm throwing mostly, you know, medium bills, baits that'll get down to about 8 to 10 feet. A lot of the jerkbait fish have been on bluff ends. Excuse me. Some of them have been in the gravel pockets where they're gonna spawn. I mean, they're not getting ready to spawn yet, but they're out there in them trees submerged in them gravel pockets. Especially, like I say, when the sun gets up, they're in there cruising around, checking out where they're going to spawn. All of the fish seem extremely healthy, whether they're smallmouth, largemouth, or Kentuckies. Everything is really good and fat, good and healthy looking. I just think we're going to have a phenomenal spring. The lake is in really good shape. The fish are in really good shape. And as long as the water doesn't get too high, we don't get any crazy rains, I think it's going to be a phenomenal, you know, spring of fishing. So if you get a chance, you need to get out there. Fishing's just going to get better and better. Like I say, it's really good. You just got to fish slow and be patient. So till next week, good luck, good fishing.